Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. My name is Amy Refat, and I am a private sector specialist with IFC's employability program, Vitae, and I will be moderating this session. Today, we are responding to requests we got from you, our audience, about how to engage alumni. We understand that many education institutions struggle with this issue. Our IFC database shows that only 25% attend events that are organized by their education institution post-graduation, and only 20% feel really connected to their institution. We also know that your alumni are one of your biggest assets. There is an unbreakable bond between alumni and their education institution. And if you know how to reach out to them, they can help you with a number of things, one of them being the employability of your current students and graduates. So we decided to dedicate a webinar session to this exciting topic. We have a great panel lined up for you representing different geographical regions. So you can see how alumni engagement is happening in different parts of the world, developed and emerging countries, and also how it works given different sized institutions. Now, I am delighted to introduce to you our speakers. We have Mohamed, better known as Mac, our IFC's senior education specialist. He has over 45 years of experience in the education sector. And prior to joining IFC, he was vice president at Seneca College, Canada's leading community college. And he also worked in senior management roles at LUMS, the Lahore University of Management Sciences, one of Pakistan's leading universities. We have Nuzhat Kamran, the current director of advancement at LUMS, in Pakistan. She established the Alumni Relations Unit and the Development and Marketing Department in the early 2000s. Crossing the ocean to the US, we have Matthew Davis, the Director of Outreach and Alumni Engagement at Cornell Tech, which is Cornell University's digital technology campus in New York City. He was previously the North American Associate Director for Alumni and Careers at IE University, a top global business school based in Madrid, Spain. Welcome to all of you. And I would like to start with you, Mac. And before delving into the topic of how to engage alumni, could you first tell us why it's important for education institutions to stay connected to their alumni? Because it takes up resources. If you could give us 3 or 4 reasons.
So thank you, Amy, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to the participants. I think it's a great topic you've picked, and I liked the way that you framed it. The hidden treasure probably is the perfect metaphor to describe alumni, because, as you rightly pointed out, they are the biggest asset of the institution. They have the strongest relationship with the alma mater. I think they're proud ambassadors of the brand, and they have a lifelong relationship. And going forward, they are the inheritors and the carriers of the legacy of the institution. So for all these reasons, it's just important to engage with them. But, if we went further, I think I would use a framework that was described by Daniel Cohen, who's an expert in alumni relations. And he sort of frames it within the 8 hours of alumni engagement. So the first R he calls is repetition. And that is that when you have opportunities for the alumni to come back for educational experiences, continuing education, executive training, etc. The next 2 R's he calls referrals and references. So, and this already came out in your survey, right? The mentoring, the coaching, the help that alumni provide with employability of graduates. He then goes on to talk about reviewing and recruitment, which is really that, because they're ambassadors and proud to carry the brand, they also encourage other young people to go to their alma mater. So if they can assist in interviewing or in recruitment, what is called strategic enrollment management now, that's another valuable reason to engage with the alumni. The other two that he talks about, and I think these are important as well, are rankings and reputation. So universities and colleges are only really as good as the alumni they produce, right? Because they are the main product. So if a university is interested in preserving or increasing or enhancing its rankings and reputations, it must network and connect with its alumni, because they are the biggest kind of promoters of the brand and the reputation. The final reason, which some institutions do but not always, is receiving. And so ultimately, once alumni are successful and they're well off financially and they have discretionary income, they can also be part of the philanthropic efforts of the institution. So that shouldn't be the main reason to engage with them, but as part of a continuum of relationship building, that is probably the final goal. And it's not like fundraising from alumni it's not a destination, it's a journey, and it's a lifelong exercise that institutions do. So I think for all these reasons, it is important to engage alumni.
Definitely. So as you're saying, they're the ambassadors. They can do all these things. Okay, so now that we're sold on the importance of engaging alumni, let's talk about the actual tactics of staying connected. What kind of strategies are there to effectively engage them?
A great question. And I was involved in alumni relations many years ago, 2 decades ago. The thing that I always recall the best is how we tried to build the relationship and frame it as an emotional bond rather than appeal to any other rational or logical reason. The message that we gave to our alumni is that this is your home, this is a special place for you. We will create opportunities for you to come back as often as possible, to come and engage with your peers, meet your favorite professors, visit the places that will bring back the nostalgia and the warm feelings, help you to recreate the magic, maybe, invite you into a mock class with a star faculty member. And, this really worked well. It resonated with people, it touched a chord, and they began to respond in a big way. So that's kind of the big picture. But if you drill down a little into what specific tactics, as you refer to them, you create touch points and moments that matter in their lives so that they stay interested. Whether these are social events, professional events, reunions, homecomings, and I'm sure the other panelists can speak much more eloquently on this because they're working at these different universities. So you can invite them and be respectful to them, have them come in as guest speakers. The mentoring angle was already mentioned. Invite them on boards, and get help from them in sponsorships, corporate philanthropy, scholarships, etc. There's a whole range of touch points that you can engage them on, and your alumni relations function or your office is your gateway and your bridge to engaging them.
Yeah, and the emotional bond really makes sense. I mean, that's how I think why I respond to my universities reaching out. Let's move to Nuzhat to get some tips from an education institution in an emerging market, Pakistan, on how she stays connected to alumni. Nuzhat, could you tell us a bit about how you incentivize your alumni to stay connected with you as an institution?
I'm really excited to be on this panel today. So just like Max said, alumni are one of the most important stakeholders of the university, right? They're the most credible spokespeople you have out there. They're your ambassadors. And they have this emotional bond that he spoke about. So it's important from their alma mater's perspective and also from their perspective that the bond is reinforced and strengthened with different activities and initiatives over time. So I think the first thing that I would say is that you need to make them feel valued, and the fact that they are important to their alma mater. That is, I think, the first thing in incentivizing any engagement on their part. Once you've got that right, so this can be done through different ways. You can, and at LUMS, what we do is that we ask them for advice and guidance anytime there's a new initiative coming up. And that kind of gives them, they are experts in their particular areas, and then they can bring a lot of insights to the university. So that is where we start. Another way we do this is by, promoting or publicizing their achievements to a larger alumni community. They are very important to us, and we want to showcase them as products of LUMS, and any achievement that they have, whether it's professional, social, or personal, makes an impact on the brand equity of LUMS. So they're like, just like Max said, the institution is as good as the alumni it produces. So this is, something that we really take pride in when we tell the whole world about what our alumni are achieving in their respective areas. And then, of course, you have to give them some opportunity to come and network on campus or within their communities. And we create those networking opportunities for them where they can interact with fellow alumni, with faculty, with the leadership of the university, and, get their viewpoint across and, of course, again, share what is happening in the industry, what's happening out there, so we can make ourselves more relevant to what is required. Then, of course, another thing that we've done and we've developed over the years is the alumni database. They have an access to the Alumni Portal, which gives them this access to all the alumni that have ever graduated from LUMS. So anybody wanting to know where a particular alumnus or alumna is, they can search them by their name, by their class, by the industry they're working in, or by the company they're working in. So they have access to the database, and that's a huge benefit that they draw from this. And closely linked to this is our job portal for alumni. So there are a number of times that we are approached by companies where they need people with experience, the lateral positions that they are interested in hiring for. So immediately we circulate these positions on the job portal, and that makes for good incentive for these people for alumni to be there. And then, of course, another thing that we do is that we have chapters, about 27 chapters across the globe. There are about 19 of them overseas, and the rest of them are within the country. Now, these chapters are groups of alumni in different cities, and with the kind of activities they do, they create, a community within that city, and that community provides a lot of support to fellow alumni. And again, there's this added benefit where some people want to lead this and conduct activities or launch initiatives that can help the university. So again, there's all the networking that can be done here. And last but not the least, we also have some benefits that we give to our alumni. So they can avail the facilities at LUMS at discounts, so they can come and stay on campus, they can use the sports facilities, the library, the recreational facilities, all at a discount, because we really want them to come to the campus and be there and, of course, relive the nostalgia and their old times there, but also avail these benefits while they're there.
That sounds great, especially the first one on making them feel important and valued. I think, then all these others come in. But could you give us an example or a story of where you engaged with alumni and how it worked out?
Quite a few stories to share, but in the interest of time, maybe I'll just share one or two. So I'll just share something about the last in-person homecoming that we had. So we were inviting alumni from all age groups, and we were like in a fix of sorts. And we said, what should we do to curate the event in a way that it creates an appeal for all age groups? And we ended up getting a group, a music band that is popular across all ages, called Strings, and they're really popular here. So we got them, and you know, it was amazing the way you could see 50 years old, you know, like tapping their feet, and the younger alumni just moving and swaying with the music. So it was just like a huge success. So that's one, and I'd like to share another one, if you'd allow me. This was for the Give a Day to Lums campaign that we launched last year. So this was a fundraising campaign that was targeted at alumni, and the idea was for them to donate 1 day's earnings to Lums for student scholarships. So the campaign was progressing, but close to its end, we decided to conduct a telethon. And this was the first time we were having a telethon. So we were quite skeptical about its success. And the way the alumni came forward to participate in the telethon, the money came, but more than that, it was so emotional because they were coming up with their stories about how they, benefited from financial aid at Lums and how it transformed their lives literally. So Amy, it was so beautiful because it was not scripted and it was all coming from the heart, and it just made the event so amazing.
So you gave them the space to talk about their experience, and that just gave them that they just went with it. So that's great, and I really like the idea of music. That sounds like another good tip, and I would imagine different ages could relate. Music brings everyone together. Let's turn to Matthew to hear how things are done at a university in the US and in Europe. Matthew, in your experience at Cornell Tech and IE in Spain, how do you engage alumni? How do you get incentivize them to stay engaged with you?
Thank you for the question, Amy, and I'm glad to be here with Nuzhat and Mac. In both cases, at Cornell Tech, where I am now, and at IE, where I used to be, I had a role where I was working on a satellite segment of the population. So the universities themselves have enormous, well-established alumni networks with complete resources, communication channels like magazines, annual reunions, infrastructure for career services, et cetera. But in my case, I've been working with a young community. As you can see by the sign behind me, Cornell Tech is only 10 years old. We have 1,200 alumni, i.e. I was working with the North American population of a European business school. So I think that the important thing in both cases when you're building a new network is to identify the alumni before they're alumni and cultivate that relationship and understand the culture that they have and the experience that they want to take forward while they're on campus. So you want to collaborate very closely with student leaders while they're on campus, whether they're club leaders or student government, and with professors who have close contact with the students while they're on campus, as well as with the student life staff members and your colleagues who are responsible for supporting that culture on campus. So you can then take that forward and produce programming that matters to them throughout life, that as both Mac and Nuzhat said, makes them come back and feel like they can call on that experience and that connection throughout their life. Similarly to that, you need to do some research and understand how students and alumni are already communicating with each other so that you can enter their networks. So in my case at Cornell Tech, we're using Slack now, which is a app that many businesses or universities use to have multi-channel chats, similar to WeChat or WhatsApp with multiple channels within one group. So we're creating a Slack group for all alumni so they can find each other around themes that matter to them, so that we can promote events to them, so that they can communicate with each other, but also so that we can communicate back and forth informally. At IE, a European school where WhatsApp was the norm, we created WhatsApp groups for alumni in all our different markets in North America. And that enabled us to have these fast communications informally that supplemented some of the more structured communications that the larger university had in place, like email and magazines and so forth. So understanding how students are talking and getting to them that way is very, very important, can be very effective for building relationships, trust, and understanding what it is that they themselves are talking about so you can support that. And then finally, I think it's important to have a really good understanding of platforms that can be used for alumni to find each other. A lot of universities have built-in platforms like Nuzhat mentioned. There's a platform where you can identify all the alumni around the world. IE and Cornell both have platforms like that, and we teach students how to use that. However, it can be just as simple as using LinkedIn and making sure that your alumni are well trained in how to present themselves on LinkedIn and how to reach out to fellow alumni on LinkedIn. So how to create a meaningful ask that's sensitive, that's respectful, that's concrete, but also how to find people. I mean, it can be as simple as teaching them how to use your university's homepage on LinkedIn to find the alumni in their city or in their target companies to reach out to them. And that's something that anyone can access. So you don't need a fancy platform. LinkedIn is the most powerful and up-to-date tool that's out there. So I think that that's a great way to start building a resource. The most important thing about it is that you teach people how to use it and also why they should answer. You need to create an expectation among those who are in a position to help that that's their obligation as members of the university community.
Excellent tip, because as you said, that's a free one. So I'm sure our audience will like that one. And yeah, how to use it, because navigating LinkedIn is not always so clear. And I like the tip. What I was hearing from the rest of what you were saying is get them while they're young, while they're still on campus, and figure out how young people talk to each other so you can enter that communication. Okay, yeah, sending out an email might not always work. Could you give us an example of, again, like Nuzhat did, of you engaging with alumni and how it turned out?
Yeah, I have two that I think are really interesting and that hit a number of, as an alumni engagement professional, you have to collaborate and you have to think holistically about all the different angles that matter. So what it does for your school, what it does for your alumni, what it does for your students. So we just planned an event at Cornell where an alum who's a venture capitalist is looking for startups to invest in, but he also wants that sensation of giving back to the community in ways other than donating, which is a traditional way in the US, but he's not really ready to do that yet. He wants to participate. So we planned an event for him to meet with student entrepreneurs on campus where he can teach them about how to pitch using a one-page document to VCs. So he offered an interactive workshop where students submitted a one-pager and he critiqued it on Zoom. This enabled him actually to meet potential founders that his company might invest in. It allowed these students to meet an investor who might invest in their company, or at the very least can become a mentor. It was very personal and it was small. We only had 7 students show up, but that was a success for everybody because they were able to really talk and really interface. So an event doesn't have, it was also on Zoom, it was totally free. An event doesn't have to be large to be a success. It was intimate and it was highly productive. And I believe that everyone who participated was able to reach out to advance the conversation afterwards. Another example from IE that also was self-replicating in a sense was an alum reached out after a long time on the job search. Not successful. They'd been using the career portal they were not finding jobs through the opportunities we sourced, and we were running out of connections to make. We can't help every alum make connections over and over again if it doesn't work. And so instead, we decided to educate this alum in a methodology to use a group to network more effectively, formed a job search work team. We helped this alum connect with a community of people in similar situations. And through that methodology, they themselves were able to go out and search and ultimately find jobs effectively. And that became a program that scaled. And that was a collaboration, an internal collaboration between the alumni department and the careers department that actually enabled us to do a lot of work simply by teaching and then saying, here are the tools, you all go forth and do this.
Like an amazing collaboration, yeah, because at some point you will run out of connections. Just a quick question on the first one, the venture capitalist. How did that one come about? Did this person approach you and say, I want to conduct this workshop, or did you suggest it to them? How did that idea come about?
So the alum actually reached out to me to request a teaching opportunity. He wanted to teach in a class. And as anyone who works in a university know, class time is very valuable. Professors are busy, they're protective, students have curriculum obligations that they have to meet. It's hard to invite someone to speak in a class. And I said, instead of that, let's come up with a topic and plan an extracurricular session that matters to you. What are you trying to do? And he said, I want to identify founders that we might invest in, and I want founders to be better prepared when they come to me. Here's this one-page topic that I think is really essential, and he was prepared to teach it. So we planned it that way.
And just on this, in a couple of words, what would you say, in your experience, is the main reason alumni engage? What really motivates them to do this?
I think Max said it. I wrote it all down so I can refer to it in the future. Repetition. They want that experience. That's why you need to understand their culture and how the student life is. They're looking to build their reputation. It's very important to them that their school represent the best possible portrayal of who they are and what they have accomplished and what their network brings to the world. I think that the other thing is advancement, and it's that opportunity to get a better job or to get more investors or to find the right client, and creating that network where people can identify the right people and reach out to them. And there's an expectation that if you turn to that network, people will respond supportively. That's where you get the hidden treasure.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for sharing your tips and experience, Matthew, on that. So now that we know why and how to engage with alumni, let's talk about how an institution can determine how successful it has been on this front. Mac, I'd like to refer to you for this one. How would you evaluate the success of alumni engagement?
So, whenever you make a plan for the future or a strategy, one of the things we naturally tend to do is we try to imagine what success looks like. And I think it's the same with alumni engagement. If a university is going down this pathway to increase alumni engagement, they want to be able to imagine what it looks like. But actually a better way to do is if you can measure it, then you have some objective way of determining how good you are or how successful you are. So here's a few questions I think that alumni offices and universities could be asking themselves when it comes to alumni engagement. One, what percentage of alumni do you have data on? Because I think that's a good starting point. And if it's like at least half, 50%, I think you're on the right track. If it's 10% or less, it could be a concern, and you obviously need to do something about it. The second thing would be, how many times a year do you engage with alumni? through different communication channels or events or activities? Are you in active engagement mode or more or less passive mode? That tells you something about how successful you are going to be in engagement. We talked earlier, and both the speakers also talked about helping with jobs and references. Well, how many jobs or how many students were placed in jobs through alumni references? That's an indicator. And it shows you how successful you are being. How many, we talked about events and reunions. How many alumni have attended at least one event in the last year? That determines their level of engagement. How many have volunteered to be part of universities' activities on a pro bono basis? And finally, how many may have given a gift or engaged in philanthropy? So these are these various kind of KPIs, performance indicators, and I'm sure there are others, and the other speakers know better than me because they are practitioners. But these are some ways to be able to engage. The final thing I would say on this is that there has been some recent research in the US, because a lot of the developments and the cutting edge kind of innovations on this have come in the US higher education system. So there's been research out of the University of San Francisco, which actually suggests a methodology to calculate, just as you would work out a return on investment, right? Which students do, right? If you're going to business school and you're paying for it and taking a loan out, you want to know what the return is. So similarly, an institution, if it's investing a lot of money and time in alumni engagement, they want to know what the return is. And one way that this researcher has suggested is if you take their event attendance, their volunteerism, their engagement online through social media, and their history of philanthropy and giving to the university, well, if you add all that up, weight it, and put it on a scale, you can get an engagement score typically for each alumnus. And once you have the aggregate data and you can mine it, analyze it, then you know exactly where your low engagement scores are, and then you can begin to put in some corrective measures. So I think all of this is important, but you need to have some quantitative and qualitative indicators to be able to measure it. Thanks.
Yeah, that research that's coming out sounds quite scientific and progressive. So let's hear from universities that are actually doing this, from them, how they are evaluating their own success and what kind of ratings you're actually receiving. Like what is the percentage of success? So let me start with you, Nuzhat, on this one. What kind of indicators are you using, and how are you rating on them as alums?
Thank you, Amy. So like Matt said, there are different indicators to see how you would measure success, right? But I think, of course, you can see the number of people that are coming to an event. I mean, you have a certain target in mind, and if you achieve 100% of that, or maybe 80% of that, that speaks for the success of that event. Similarly, like we spoke about fundraising through alumni. So one is the amount that comes in, but it's also the number of alumni who come in. So maybe the amount is not that high, but to my mind, that's not as important as the fact that they're thinking of their alma mater, and they are, even if they're donating $5 or $10, that's fine. I mean, as long as they are engaged. So to my mind, that is also engagement, and that also denotes a success in some ways. And then, of course, the way they are volunteering in different areas and helping you achieve your objectives as a university. So I can give you examples of alumni that are really helping us in opening doors for us. Like, they're taking us to different corporates. I just received an email from one of the corporates we had spoken to, and they've started a scholarship for one of the students at LUMS. So, and that's all because one alumnus took the time out, made the effort, took us to that person, and we had that meeting, and it was fruitful, and we ended up getting it. So sometimes it's not, I would feel that that's fine. I mean, we have how many alumni are coming and how many alumni participated, or opened our email. So we have the open rate for that, and how many alumni responded to our newsletter and so on. But I feel that the quality of engagement is also very important. So if there's just maybe 5 alumni, but who are really committed and who are really going out on a limb for the institution, I think we've achieved quite a bit, So that to my mind is, a lot more impactful than my saying that, oh, you know what, I wanted to get 1,000 people in and I got 800. So wow, I've really been very successful. So that's fine. That's good too. But I'd rather have people who can actually make an impact. And that is what I'm discovering as I'm, working with our alumni. Having said all this, we do have all these indicators that we look at, but we thought at LUMS, we decided that we wanted to really check and give it the litmus test and see how are we doing in our alumni engagement strategies and our plans and initiatives. So this year we're launching a survey, which is a short and crisp one. You can't overload the alumni; they will never respond. So we're sending out a survey to alumni across the globe to understand how they perceive what's happening at our end, and what more do they want from us? What are we doing well? What can we do better? And I think that will give us a very good idea of how engaged they actually are. So this is my take on this. Thanks.
It's a focus on the quality of those engagements as opposed to the quantity. Okay, and Matt, could I also ask you to tell us about the indicators you use and how you, or what you would consider, what kind of rating you would consider successful?
Developing them now. Cornell Tech is a new school. This is a new role. There hasn't been someone totally focused on alumni engagement before. So we're actually in the process of defining the metrics, and they are a mix of what's been said before. Attendance, donations, communications, how many people are participating in the Slack group that I discussed, how many people are opening our emails, how many people are registering for events and then actually showing up. So some of it's just counting. The other thing that I think is really helpful is keeping contact reports of everyone you speak to. So when you talk to an alum, write a report and identify in some keywords the themes that emerge. Are they interested in jobs? Are they interested in speaking? Are they interested in giving? Are they interested in social networking, coming to happy hours, for example? So understanding who you talk to and being able to refer to that very quickly is very helpful. So not just quantitative data, but also that qualitative data. But I think the quantitative data that we've discussed is everything that we're looking at and going to try to quantify. We have coming up Giving Day, which is a Cornell University-wide effort to get as many donations as possible. So not the highest number of dollars, but actually the highest number of participants. And our goal this year is to have just one more donor than last year. So we had 98 last year for Cornell Tech, and this year we want 99. And if we get 99, that's going to be a success. So it can be very incremental. But there's many ways you can look at it. Don't forget the qualitative.
Okay, yes, that's coming across loud and clear from both of you, the qualitative way of analyzing and evaluating this. Okay, so you brought up an important point. There's also resources. And on that, actually, I'm going to turn to Mac. And because this, I'm sure, is what a lot of the audience are thinking about. What kind of resources do I need to set up an alumni unit in terms of staff? Mac, what could you shed some light on that?
This is where it all starts, Amy. And again, the practitioners on the panel are obviously much better equipped to answer this, but maybe I can frame it in general terms. So the role of alumni is so important, as we talked about the hidden treasure, the ambassadorship, the assets and so on, that it needs to be embedded in the DNA of the institution. And it starts from the top, from the leadership, from the vision, from the mission. And alumni should be an integral part of that. And the leadership has to signal the importance of alumni relations throughout the institution as well as within the alumni fraternity. If they don't, then it doesn't get attention, it doesn't get resources. And without the attention and resources, you are going to set it up for failure. So that's one. The second, and to be more specific and drill down a bit, you need to institutionalize the function. Like you can't just have a group of random people doing alumni relations in an ad hoc way. No, you need to have a proper organizational structure that's aligned to the vision and the mission of the institution. That's one. Secondly, you need people, professionals with the requisite skills and expertise and experience. In my experience, if you get an alumnus or an alumna who's willing to take on this role, nothing like it, because they alone have the passion and the rest will come with their skills and experience. So I think we've seen this in many cases around the world. The next thing is what Matt alluded to, technology platforms and tools for data, for analytics, for communications, and there's a slew of them available today, right? There's no shortage of these now. It's not rocket science anymore. You don't have to go in-house and create it. You can buy these off the shelf. The next is obviously the big one, dollars, adequate financial resources, because without that also you can't do all of the initiatives that you want. Then program diversity, like the two speakers talked about, right? Different types of engagement events, homecomings, reunions, social events, professional events, taking it out into the other cities, internationally, and so on. And then a final point, which sometimes universities may forget or may not pay enough attention to, is don't forget faculty, the role of faculty. Because remember, throughout the life cycle or the time that students spend on campus, their closest relationship sometimes is with their favorite faculty member. And they want to be able to come back and reconnect with that person, or maybe with a larger faculty group. So if you engage them and make them partners in the coalition, alumni relations will be far more successful. So I think these are some of kind of the basic ground rules that you need in terms of the resource structure. Thanks.
Thanks, Mac. No, that was very comprehensive. So we definitely need resources and we need it to be institutionalized. I'm going to refer to Matthew and Nuzhat quickly before we switch to the Q&A on numbers, more numbers. So Matt, what kind of resources staff-wise do you use at Cornell Tech, given the size of your size of your alumni?
The Alumni Affairs and Development Department or Division at Cornell University is over 400 employees. It's enormous. We have 250,000 alumni around the world, and 400 plus people working on fundraising and engagement. On the engagement side, it's, I think, around 60, 70 people handling all the questions of reunions, communications, different units like Cornell Tech, for example, and so on. So we're about that. Within Cornell Tech, we've got 1,200 alumni. We've got about 500 students this year, so the number's growing rapidly. Our team is 6, and that team is has historically been focused on the fundraising side of things. And now with the creation of my role, there's a new emphasis on the engagement work. So really there's one full-time engagement person. But I think that the thing that's really helpful for all alumni engagement people to think about is how can you collaborate with your colleagues in different departments? How can you have a 360-degree view of what's happening in the university? How can you partner with the admissions team or with the student life team or with the academic side of the house or the partner institutions that may be doing alumni affairs for their students in the markets you're trying to access. So how can you have this holistic view? And how can you think about the alumni life cycle from the time where they're a prospective student through this time where they're on campus, all the way through, from young alumni to, later stages of their life and career?
Two things. In terms of numbers, it's one full-time staff with about 1,200 alumni. And to be able to manage that, it's important to collaborate with all these other units that can help you. Okay, great. And Nuzhat, if I can quickly also go to you on that. How many staff did you start off with, and how many do you have now, and given the number of your alumni?
Well, we started it about 20 years ago. There was just one resource, and that was me. And we had about 1,500 alumni at the time. But now we have about 15,000 plus alumni. And we have 5 full-time dedicated resources in the alumni relations team. But just like Matthew said, when we have an event, then we need volunteers, because obviously these 5 people cannot measure up to get the whole thing done. So we get volunteers not only from the alumni but also from students, and that's a good way of them becoming part of the whole alumni engagement exercise. And of course, across the university, within the advancement team, all my sections are helping the alumni relations team in conducting whatever they have to do.
It's a similar ratio, like one staff member handling 1,500 students and then growing afterwards. So just to give people an idea of how many staff members you could work with, and you could start off with one. Okay, what I'm going to do now is switch to our Q&A, because we only have 10 minutes left. Let me start with, okay, this one. I think I will direct this one at Matthew. Could you elaborate on an ongoing mentorship program, if you have one? Matt, would you like to take that one, Matthew?
Yeah, so actually at Cornell Tech, there is a mentorship program that was organized by students as they graduate. It's been going on for several years, so it's older than the official alumni engagement program. And that's fantastic. So each year, graduating students volunteer to become mentors of an incoming student. They advise them. It's a one-to-one mentorship. Periodically, a mentor can take on 2 mentees, but they advise them sort of how to get the most out of their time on campus, and then how to think about what comes next, how to get the most out of the network after they graduate. So there's, now that it's been going on a few years, there is sort of a chain of, bigs and littles, to use terminology from fraternity and sorority life. But what's really exciting about this mentorship program is it's totally organic. There's been zero staff oversight for this, and that is something that can happen when you have a really strong campus culture. So that's the sort of thing that as staff, we don't want to interfere with. We want to find out ways to support. And as a new program, we're trying to figure out how to scale that and support that without sort of disrupting the magic.
That sounds excellent. You're just going to come in and help support. They've started it themselves. Okay. Another one, and I'll ask maybe Nuzhat to comment on this. A question on, do you have alumni associations in your universities, and how do they work? And perhaps she's talking about chapters.
So, well, there are alumni associations. We do have one. We have, in fact, that's the oldest alumni association that we have, because that started when LUM started. It started as a business school. So this is the business school alumni association that we have, and other schools that came up later still don't have one. So the alumni relations office manages all the alumni engagement initiatives. This association has been there for the last 35 years now, and it organizes events, but the mandate is primarily to engage alumni and to create opportunities for networking and keeping them informed about the university and all. And they have their annual event at the campus, and of course the alumni relation team helps them with whatever needs to be done. But yes, we do have an alumni association. This is different from the 27 chapters that we have across the globe. So chapters are different, and this association is a different entity. The Alumni Association is, it has representation from all the batches that have graduated in the business school, right? And so they have their class reps from each class. And from within those class reps, they conduct elections, and they have about 10 people who form the council for that Alumni Association. And from that council, then they select about, a few people who then lead it. So there's the president, and there's the vice president, the treasurer, and so on. And this is like the kind of formal structure that they have. And I've already spoken about what their mandate is. So this is how they're working. But it's not like a registered entity. It's a group of volunteers, if I may say so. There's not like a registered formal entity unto itself.
There's another question here that I will direct at Matthew on Alumni Portals. What kind of Alumni Portals are out there? What do you suggest? I know, Matthew, you were talking, there's a free LinkedIn, but somebody's also interested in what other portals are out there and what you suggest.
There's a huge number of portals out there, and it's a really growing sector. Ed tech, you may have heard of, there's a lot of competition, and so it can be hard to even find the right one for your needs. Two that I've got experience with are People Grove, which we use at Cornell, and Firsthand, which we used at IE. And they are platforms that enable alumni to create profiles to indicate their interests, their affinities, and also their availability for conversations and one-to-ones with others in the community. So you can use these when you're seeking advice to reach out to people who have already agreed to respond and to help. So it takes out some of that mystery of a LinkedIn message where you don't know if people are going to respond or not. And they can even have built-in scheduling software so that it goes right into your iCal, and you can have the conversation that way. So those are two that I have experience with. I found Firsthand to be very user-friendly. I really liked it. People Grove, I'm still getting to know, but I think it has a lot of the same functionality.
For that, Matthew. And there's a question here that I'll ask Mac to comment on the value of alumni for institutions funding university students in relation to their loan repayments. So I think this is about alumni funding university applicants. And I think Nuzhat has already maybe given an example of her university doing that. Mac, do you have any comments on that?
I think it's been covered already. Just suffice to say that it's, as I mentioned in my earlier comments, it's probably the final part of alumni engagements when they're at a stage in their careers where they've accomplished something and they have discretionary financial resources, and they feel a sense of loyalty and a responsibility to give back to the institution. I think that's when these conversations are most productive. And I think one very good institutional way of doing this is to get a whole class and a whole cohort to set up an endowment or a scholarship fund. And actually what we used to do way back is that when the final year class was about to graduate, we would have a 1 hour or a 2 hour long session with them, introducing alumni relations to them, and then actually encouraging them to say, look, guys, as soon as you get jobs and you become successful, think about setting up a class of 2022 financial aid fund. And I think they've managed to do that successfully since then. So I think that's a perfect example. Of course, as an individual alumnus, you can also, help the current generation of students. But if you do it as a cohort, I guess you can, make it much more substantial. And of course, you can make it more permanent in the form of an endowment. So I think these are excellent ways of giving back.
Thank you, Mac, for that. And unfortunately, our time is up. I will just quickly respond to one question here on whether there's been any research on alumni engagement in Africa or South Africa, where this is still developing. Yes, definitely, that's exactly what Vitae does. We work with institutions in emerging countries, and we can see that this is an area where many institutions struggle. However, there is some level of engagement. So one is the statistic I shared earlier from our IFC database, about only 25% of alumni engage in events that are organized by their institution post-graduation. But there's more of that. Please visit our website. And with that, I will have to wrap up, unfortunately. I'd like to just point out that we've gone over some really great points from our speakers on why you would connect with your alumni, how to do it, and how to evaluate it. So a big thank you to our guest speakers, Mac, Matthew, and Nuzhat. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and experience. Thank you everyone for joining. I hope you have some good ideas now to move forward or connecting with your alumni. There are so many benefits. And if you have any questions about the IFC Vitae program and how we might help your institution on employability outcomes, please don't hesitate to contact us through our website, which we will be sharing alongside the recording of this webinar. And really looking forward to seeing everybody on our next webinar. Thank you again. Bye for now.